The story of Niccolò Rizzuto and the rise of his criminal empire is a tale that intertwines personal ambition, historical circumstance, and systemic vulnerabilities. Born in 1924 in Cattolica Ercole, a small town in Sicily, Rizzuto was raised in an environment where the code of silence, or omertà, and the influence of the mafia were deeply ingrained in the local culture. This upbringing played a pivotal role in shaping his worldview and future endeavours. In the aftermath of World War II, Italy was in chaos, and many Sicilians, including the Rizzuto family, sought better opportunities abroad. The allure of countries like Canada, with its burgeoning economy and promise of a new life, was irresistible. However, the Rizzutos did not leave their past behind. They carried with them the traditions and connections that would eventually lay the groundwork for their criminal enterprise. Upon arriving in Canada in the 1950s, Niccolò Rizzuto and his family settled in Montreal, a city that was rapidly evolving both economically and socially. The post-war era was a time of significant growth and transformation, with Montreal emerging as a major industrial and cultural hub. This period of prosperity, however, was accompanied by a darker underbelly. The city's rapid expansion and the influx of immigrants created a fertile ground for organised crime. The Rizzuto family, with their Sicilian roots and connections to the mafia, were uniquely positioned to exploit these opportunities. They quickly established themselves within the Italian-Canadian community, leveraging their cultural ties and familial bonds to build a network of influence and power. Niccolò Rizzuto's ascent in the criminal world was not solely due to his heritage. It was also a result of his strategic acumen and ruthless ambition. He understood the importance of building alliances and consolidating power, and he was adept at navigating the complex web of relationships that define the underworld. Rizzuto's ability to forge partnerships with other criminal organizations, including the Sicilian Mafia and the Calabrian 'Ndrangheta, was instrumental in solidifying his position. These alliances not only provided him with the manpower and resources necessary to expand his operations, but also afforded him a degree of protection and legitimacy within the global criminal network. The Rizzuto family's criminal activities were diverse, ranging from drug trafficking and money laundering to extortion and murder. They were particularly successful in the drug trade, capitalizing on Montreal's status as a major port city and its proximity to the United States. The family's involvement in the heroin trade, in particular, was a significant source of their wealth and power. By the 1970s, the Rizzutos had established themselves as one of the most formidable criminal organizations in North America, with a reach that extended well beyond the borders of Canada. The rise of the Rizzuto Empire was also facilitated by the systemic corruption and institutional weaknesses that plagued Montreal during this period. The city's police force was notoriously corrupt, with many officers willing to turn a blind eye to criminal activities in exchange for financial gain. This culture of corruption allowed the Rizzutos to operate with relative impunity, as they were able to bribe officials and manipulate the legal system to their advantage. The lack of effective law enforcement and the absence of a coordinated strategy to combat organised crime further enabled the family's expansion. However, the Rizzuto family's success did not come without challenges. Internal power struggles and external threats from rival gangs were constant sources of tension. The family's ability to maintain control over their empire required a delicate balance of diplomacy and violence. Niccolò Rizzuto, known for his cunning and pragmatism, was often called upon to mediate disputes and quell dissent within the ranks. His leadership was characterized by a willingness to use force when necessary, but also by a keen understanding of the importance of maintaining appearances and preserving the family's reputation. As the Rizzuto Empire grew, so too did the scrutiny from law enforcement and the media. The family's activities did not go unnoticed, and efforts to dismantle their operation intensified. Despite these challenges, the Rizzutos managed to adapt and persevere, continually evolving their strategies to stay one step ahead of the authorities. The family's resilience and adaptability were key factors in their enduring success. The 1960s and 1970s were a tumultuous period for Montreal, a city that found itself at the crossroads of profound social, political, and economic changes. This era, often referred to as the Quiet Revolution, marked a significant turning point in Quebec's history, as the province underwent a rapid transformation from a conservative, religious society to a more secular and progressive one. The winds of change were palpable, and Montreal, as the largest city in Quebec and a cultural and economic powerhouse, was at the epicenter of this transformation. However, beneath the surface of this vibrant and dynamic city lay a darker reality, one characterized by systemic corruption, organized crime, and social unrest. The Quiet Revolution was driven by a desire for change and modernization, as Quebecers sought to assert their cultural identity and gain greater control over their political and economic destinies. This period saw the secularization of the education system, the nationalization of hydroelectric power, and a growing sense of nationalism among the French-speaking population. The rise of the Quebec sovereignty movement, with figures like René Lévesque and the Parti Québécois, further fueled the push for change and autonomy. Montreal, as the political and cultural heart of Quebec, was a hotbed of activism and intellectual discourse, with students, artists, and intellectuals playing a crucial role in shaping the public discourse. However, the rapid pace of change and the push for modernization also created a climate of uncertainty and instability. The city's infrastructure struggled to keep up with its growing population, and social inequalities were exacerbated by economic disparities. The divide between the English-speaking and French-speaking communities, though less pronounced than in previous decades, still posed a significant challenge. Tensions occasionally boiled over into protests and strikes as workers and students demanded better working conditions and greater representation. It was against this backdrop of change and upheaval that organized crime, particularly the Italian mafia, found fertile ground to flourish. The Rizzuto family, along with other criminal organizations, capitalized on the city's vulnerabilities and the weaknesses of its institutions. The police force, plagued by corruption and a lack of resources, was ill-equipped to tackle the growing influence of organized crime. Many officers were on the payroll of criminal syndicates, turning a blind eye to illegal activities in exchange for financial gain. This culture of corruption permeated all levels of law enforcement, from beat cops to high-ranking officials, creating an environment of impunity for criminal enterprises. Montreal's status as a major port city and its proximity to the United States made it an ideal hub for drug trafficking and other illicit activities. The Rizzuto family, with their extensive network of contacts and their ability to exploit the city's infrastructure, were able to establish a dominant presence in the drug trade. The heroin trade, in particular, was a lucrative source of income, as Montreal became a key transit point for the drug en route to North American markets. The family's involvement in money laundering, extortion, and other criminal enterprises further solidified their power and influence. The presence of organized crime had a profound impact on the city's social fabric. Violence and intimidation were common tactics used by criminal organizations to maintain control and eliminate rivals. The Rizzuto family, known for their ruthlessness and strategic acumen, were particularly adept at using violence to achieve their objectives. The fear and instability generated by their activities had a chilling effect on the community, as residents and businesses lived in constant fear of reprisals. The corruption and inefficiency of law enforcement were compounded by a lack of political will and coordination in the fight against organized crime. Efforts to dismantle criminal organizations were often hampered by jurisdictional disputes and a lack of resources. The federal and provincial governments, preoccupied with other issues, were slow to recognize the severity of the problem and to allocate the necessary resources to combat it. As a result, the Rizzuto family and other criminal organizations were able to operate with relative impunity, expanding their operations and consolidating their power. The criminal underworld is often depicted as a realm of power and wealth, but beneath the surface lies a complex web of rivalries, betrayals, and shifting alliances. The Rizzuto family, a dominant force in Montreal's organized crime scene, was no exception to this rule. Their rise to power was marked by a constant struggle for dominance, not only against external threats, but also within their own ranks. The intricate dynamics of family loyalty, ambition, and the thirst for power created a volatile mix that often erupted into violence and betrayal. At the heart of the Rizzuto family's internal conflicts was the struggle for control and influence. As the family expanded its criminal empire, the stakes grew higher, and the competition for leadership positions intensified. Niccolò Rizzuto, the patriarch, was a shrewd and calculating leader, but his authority was often challenged by ambitious underlings and rival factions within the organization. The desire for power and the fear of betrayal created an atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia where even the closest allies could not be fully trusted. One of the most significant sources of internal tension was the generational divide within the family. The older generation, led by Niccolò Rizzuto, adhered to traditional mafia values and methods, emphasizing loyalty, honor, and the importance of maintaining a low profile. In contrast, the younger generation, influenced by the changing times and the allure of modern criminal enterprises, sought to adopt more aggressive and flamboyant tactics. This clash of ideologies led to frequent disagreements and power struggles, as the younger members of the family pushed for a more assertive approach to expanding their operations. The rivalry between Vito Rizzuto, Niccolo's son, and other family members and associates was a particularly contentious issue. Vito, who was seen as the heir apparent to his father's empire, faced opposition from those who questioned his leadership abilities and resented his privileged position. His ambition and willingness to take risks often put him at odds with more conservative elements within the organization. The tension reached a climax in the early 2000s, when a series of high-profile arrests and assassinations rocked the Rizzuto family and led to a power vacuum that fueled further infighting. Betrayal was a constant threat in the world of the Rizzutos. The pressure to maintain loyalty and secrecy, coupled with the lure of financial gain and personal vendettas, created an environment where betrayal was always a possibility. Informants and turncoats were a persistent problem, as individuals within the organization sought to protect their interests or settle scores by cooperating with law enforcement. The fear of betrayal led to a culture of mistrust and secrecy, where even the most trusted associates were viewed with suspicion. The Rizzuto family's internal conflicts were further exacerbated by external pressures from rival criminal organizations. The Montreal underworld was a complex and competitive landscape, with various factions vying for dominance. The Rizzutos faced challenges from other Italian-Canadian groups, as well as from criminal organizations with ties to different ethnic communities. These rivalries often erupted into violent confrontations, as each group sought to assert its dominance and eliminate competitors. The interplay between internal rivalries and external threats created a climate of constant tension and instability. The Rizzuto family's ability to navigate this treacherous terrain required a delicate balance of diplomacy, intimidation, and violence. Leaders like Niccolò and Vito Rizzuto had to be adept at managing internal dissent while simultaneously confronting external challenges. Their success in maintaining control over their empire was a testament to their strategic acumen and their willingness to use force when necessary. In conclusion, the internal dynamics of the Rizzuto family were a microcosm of the broader challenges faced by organized crime groups. The interplay of ambition, loyalty, and betrayal created a complex and volatile environment where the struggle for power was a constant and ever-present threat. The Rizzuto family's ability to survive and thrive in this environment highlights the resilience and adaptability of criminal organizations, as well as the enduring allure of power and wealth. As we reflect on the internal conflicts that shaped the Rizzuto empire, it is crucial to recognize the human cost of these power struggles and the devastating impact they have on individuals and communities. The decline of the Rizzuto family's criminal empire was a protracted and complex process, culminating in the tragic and symbolic death of its patriarch, Niccolò Rizzuto, in 2010. This event marked the end of an era for Montreal's organized crime scene and signaled a significant power shift in the city's underworld. The circumstances surrounding Rizzuto's death were as intricate as the web of alliances and rivalries that defined his life, reflecting the culmination of years of internal strife, external pressures, and the relentless pursuit of law enforcement agencies. Niccolò Rizzuto, who had long been the undisputed leader of the family, was a figure of immense influence and respect within the criminal community. His leadership style, characterized by a careful balance of diplomacy and force, had allowed the Rizzuto family to maintain its dominance for decades. However, as he entered his later years, the family faced a series of challenges that threatened to unravel their empire. The relentless pressure from law enforcement, coupled with internal power struggles and external threats from rival gangs, created a climate of instability and uncertainty. The turning point came in the early 2000s, when a series of high-profile arrests and convictions weakened the family's grip on power. Vito Rizzuto, Niccolo's son and heir apparent, was extradited to the United States to face charges related to a decades-old murder conspiracy. His absence left a power vacuum that fueled internal dissent and exposed the family to increased scrutiny and attacks from rival organizations. The once unified front of the Rizzuto clan began to fracture, as factions vied for control and influence. The death of Niccolò Rizzuto, who was shot and killed in his home in November 2010, was a devastating blow to the family and a clear indication of the escalating violence and instability within the Montreal underworld. The assassination, carried out with precision and ruthlessness, was a stark reminder of the dangers and betrayals that defined the criminal world. The murder sent shockwaves through the community, as allies and rivals alike grappled with the implications of Rizzuto's death. The investigation into Rizzuto's murder revealed the extent of the corruption and lawlessness that had permeated the city's institutions. The lack of concrete evidence and the reluctance of witnesses to come forward highlighted the pervasive culture of fear and intimidation that surrounded the Rizzuto family. Despite the efforts of law enforcement agencies, the case remains unsolved, a testament to the enduring power of the criminal networks that continue to operate in the shadows. The death of Niccolò Rizzuto marked the beginning of a new chapter for the Rizzuto family and the Montreal underworld. The power vacuum left by his passing led to a period of intense infighting and realignment, as various factions sought to fill the void and assert their dominance. The once mighty Rizzuto empire began to crumble, as former allies turned against each other and new players emerged to challenge the status quo. In the aftermath of Rizzuto's death, the landscape of organised crime in Montreal underwent a significant transformation. The traditional dominance of the Italian mafia was challenged by the rise of other criminal organisations, including biker gangs and street gangs with ties to different ethnic communities. The fragmentation of the underworld led to increased violence and instability, as rival groups vied for control over lucrative criminal enterprises. The legacy of Niccolò Rizzuto and the Rizzuto family is a complex and multifaceted one. While their criminal activities caused immense harm to individuals and communities, their story also serves as a cautionary tale about the corrosive effects of corruption, violence, and the pursuit of power. The fall of the Rizzuto empire underscores the importance of addressing the systemic issues that enable organized crime to flourish and the need for a coordinated and sustained effort to dismantle these networks. In conclusion, the death of Niccolò Rizzuto was a pivotal moment in the history of Montreal's organised crime scene, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter. The decline of the Rizzuto family highlights the volatile and unpredictable nature of the criminal underworld and the enduring challenges faced by law enforcement agencies in their efforts to combat organised crime. As we reflect on the life and death of Niccolò Rizzuto, it is crucial to recognise the human cost of his actions and the importance of learning from the past to build a safer and more just society. The rise and fall of the Rizzuto family's criminal empire had profound and far-reaching effects on the communities of Montreal and beyond, leaving a legacy of social and economic consequences that continue to be felt to this day. The pervasive influence of organised crime, particularly the Italian mafia, has had a devastating impact on the social fabric, economic stability, and overall well-being of these communities. The story of the Rizzutos is not just one of power and wealth. It is a tale of the human cost of crime and the enduring challenges faced by those who live in the shadow of criminal empires. At the heart of the social impact is the pervasive culture of fear and intimidation that organised crime instills in communities. The Rizzuto family's reign was marked by a climate of violence and coercion, as they used intimidation tactics to maintain control over their territory and eliminate rivals. This culture of fear had a chilling effect on residents who often lived in constant anxiety, afraid to speak out or report crimes for fear of reprisals. The sense of insecurity and vulnerability was particularly acute in neighbourhoods where the Rizzutos held sway, as residents were caught between the threat of violence from criminal elements and the perceived indifference or corruption of law enforcement. The presence of organised crime also had a corrosive effect on the social fabric of communities, undermining trust and cohesion. The Rizzuto family's activities, which included drug trafficking, extortion, and money laundering, contributed to the proliferation of illegal and harmful behaviours. The drug trade, in particular, had a devastating impact on individuals and families, fueling addiction, crime, and social disintegration. The normalization of criminal activities within certain communities further eroded social norms and values, making it difficult for residents to find legitimate paths to success and stability. Economically, the influence of the Rizzuto family and other criminal organizations had a significant and detrimental impact on the legitimate business environment. The practice of extortion, where businesses were forced to pay protection money to avoid violence or property damage, was widespread. This not only imposed a financial burden on small and medium-sized enterprises, but also stifled economic growth and innovation. The presence of criminal enterprises in the marketplace created an unfair competitive environment, as legitimate businesses struggled to compete with those that operated outside the law. The Rizzuto family's involvement in the drug trade and other illicit activities also had broader economic implications. The flow of illegal drugs into the city fueled a black market economy that diverted resources away from legitimate economic activities. The money laundering operations of the Rizzutos and other criminal groups further distorted the financial system, as illicit funds were channeled into legal businesses and investments, undermining the integrity of the economy. The economic distortions caused by organized crime contributed to a cycle of poverty and underdevelopment as communities struggled to attract investment and create sustainable economic opportunities. The social and economic impact of organized crime was compounded by the corruption and inefficiency of law enforcement and government institutions. The Rizzuto family's ability to operate with relative impunity was facilitated by a culture of corruption that permeated many levels of law enforcement and the judiciary. The perception that the criminal justice system was compromised further eroded public trust and confidence, making it difficult for communities to seek redress or protection from the state. In recent years, efforts to combat organised crime and rebuild affected communities have focused on addressing the root causes of crime and promoting social and economic development. Community-based initiatives such as youth programs, job training, and support for small businesses have been implemented to provide alternatives to criminal activities and foster a sense of hope and opportunity. Law enforcement agencies have also adopted a more proactive and collaborative approach, working with community leaders and organisations to build trust and address the underlying issues that contribute to crime. In conclusion, the impact of the Rizzuto family's criminal empire on communities was profound and multifaceted, with social and economic consequences that continue to resonate. The story of the Rizzutos serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of organised crime and the importance of addressing the systemic issues that enable it to flourish. As we reflect on the legacy of the Rizzuto family, it is crucial to recognise the resilience of communities and the potential for positive change through collective action and a commitment to justice and equality. As we reflect on the life and death of Niccolò Rizzuto, it is crucial that we ask ourselves, what can we learn from this story? How can we prevent such tragedies from recurring? Education and awareness are powerful tools in the fight against organised crime. What is the role of education in crime prevention? And how can we as a society work together to build a safer and more just future? Let's discuss these issues and consider possible solutions. Now it's your turn to participate. We would like to hear your questions and thoughts on the topic. Leave a comment below with your questions or reflections. Let's continue this conversation and learn together. Your voice matters, and your participation can help enrich our understanding of this important issue. We hope this video has offered a critical and reflective insight into the life of Niccolò Rizzuto and the impact of his actions. Our goal is to educate and inform, promoting a serious and constructive discussion about organised crime and its consequences. If you like this content, consider subscribing to our channel, turning on notifications, and leaving a like. Your support helps us continue producing educational and informative videos. Together, we can work to better understand the past and build a safer future. Thanks for watching. Till next time.